The next update will heavily talk about the Hexen Circle. Even if it's not talking about them, which yeah, I can definitely see that being the case, they are at least involved in the majority of the quest. Alice, Nicole, and Barbaloth will be involved in Outcry's Archon quest, and we'll have more story about Durin and his background, to which 2 more mages, Anders' daughter and Rhine-daughter with possibly Nibirius, will be involved. And finally, the Hexerei homework quests, where you are demanded to do these quests in order to obtain their buffs. Well, there are some parts of the character's base kit that got buffed directly, like how they improve Venti and Klee's animation, and how Razor's kit is more oriented towards Electro DPS. They did not change his Ascension passive, by the way, which you know what, whatever. However, my videos talk about lore, let alone I am not in the content creator experience server. There's this one thing that catches my interest, and also MiHoYo's decision as to why they don't include this character. Lisa. Despite the connections, why is Lisa not counted under the Hexerei characters? In today's video, we'll explore that, and at the end, we can do a little bit of what I would do if I were to make her a Hexerei character. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Glitchxcity, and I make lore and commentary videos on the channel to keep you company. But before that, I'll let you know Zhongli's banners are ending very soon. After them, Durin will be on the next banner as the most highly anticipated and one of the strongest parasub DPS ever released so far. Black Friday season is also coming, and if you really want to add extra fundings for Durin, then allow me to introduce you to Lootbar. Lootbar is a reliable site for a fast, secure, and super reliable top-up experience for your Genesis Crystal. Additionally, they provide 25% discounts compared to normal prices in-game, and that's not all. From November 25th to December 2nd, Lootbar is adding more discounts for Black Friday sales with no minimum spending, double points for your first purchase for more discounts, usable on any purchase, and this offer is available for all users, whether you're new or returning users. Once you start your top-up, they will only ask for your UID, nothing else, so your privacy is guaranteed and your items will arrive to your account in less than 2 minutes. Not only that, you can also top up Kernel Nexus in Lootbar the same way as you do it with Genesis Crystals. If you're playing on consoles like PlayStation 5 or Xbox, they're available for both of them as well. Over 20,000 Trustpilot reviews are showing their satisfaction after using Lootbar, and if you have any problem with your transaction, their customer service is always available if you need assistance. Other than Genshin Impact, Lootbar is also available for other games as well, such as Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, etc. Click the link in the description below and register to get an additional 10% coupon that can be combined with all of the discounts, and of course, all users will receive more coupons for the Black Friday sales. But remember, discounts are great, but don't forget to spend responsibly. Now let's continue with the content. In order for us to understand why Lisa is not part of the Hexerei character list, we need to analyze why the current Hexerei characters are even aligned as part of the Hexen Circle. Most of the characters are quite straightforward when it comes to their affiliation, like for example, Venti is the Anemo Archon and is directly connected to them as he, the Knights of Avonius, and the Hexen Circle made a pact together to protect Mondstadt. Of course, there might be more to this, but that's a topic for a different day. Cases like Mona, Klee, Albedo, and Durin are also quite straightforward as they are directly connected to the witches, with Klee, Albedo, and Durin are considered as a family member to their respective witch, and Mona is Barbaloth's disciple. This leaves the 4 stars with questionable relationships. Some of you ask why Razor and Sucrose are included in the Hexerei buff. Well, that's because Sucrose is Albedo's student and Albedo is Rhine-daughter's disciple, or son per se, so it makes sense for her to be included. As for Razor, he is tied to the lore of Boreas. He is also related to Farka, who also has strong relation with the Hexen Circle. Boreas is theorized to come from Notcry, and Razor also has connection with Farka. Therefore, his affiliation with the Hexen Circle made sense. Of course, with this logic, then Rosaria should also be part of the Hexerei characters, but considering Razor's relationship is more so to Boreas and he himself is related to the moon, this is the best answer that I can give for now. He is also connected to Lisa, which by the way, she is also connected to the Hexen Circle in some way, but I'll talk about that later. Now, out of all 3, Fischl is the weirdest one because she has no affiliation with the Hexen Circle at all. The closest that we can think of is that she is friends with Mona and went to the Golden Apple Archipelago in the 2.8 event. But unlike Sucrose and Albedo, where their relationship is a lot closer to disciple and teacher, Mona and Fischl are just friends. Sometimes Mona mentions Fischl's fortune and all, but that is all as far as it goes. If I can put my 2 cents here, Fischl's relationship towards the Hexen Circle is very likely Anders' daughter. You might remember that the story of Imanaktrach is basically where Fischl got her persona from. Fischl is not even her real name. Her birth name is Amy. The writer of the Princess Fischl is someone by the name of Mr. Nine, and he is also a writer for The Legend of the Shattered Halberd in Liyue. In fact, that book is a prequel to Fischl's story. Now I'll spare you the details about these books because the first book is 6 chapters long and is admittingly really boring, while Princess Fischl has no real story yet, and it is written in a way that is disconnected towards Genshin's usual writing. Like for real, if I have to say Mr. Nine is not from Teyvat, I would, because there's even a mention of Buddha, Asura, and Leviathan in his book, which is a direct reference towards real-life mythology. However, the final chapter mentions something interesting. You see, the point of that book is to find 9 cursed swords in order to recreate the divine halberd to save the world. Prinzessin de Verurtelang is the second divine halberd that the God King in that book created and also acts as the sequel of this book. But then, the book also mentioned the first divine halberd's name. Ermin. Deadass. When I read that, I became Cynthia and moved my chair back because that was so sudden. But for real though, like your usual Genshin's fairy tale, it's very likely that this book is foreshadowing of what's to come. It's also weird that the book called Flowers of Princess Fischl is never released in the game like I just mentioned. Well, I mean there is, but the book doesn't really tell the actual story because it's chapter 0, where the book only explains the terminology of the story. In any case, the point is that Mr. Nine might be related to Anders' daughter considering the two are writers and wrote fictional stories. So if there's a relation that I can go for with Fischl, of course aside from Mona, it could be related to the Flowers of Princess Fischl, which is a sequel of The Legend of the Shattered Halberd. That's the connection of these characters with the Hexen Circle witches, which now lives to Lisa. Why is she not included as part of the Hexerei members? Why is she not part of the Hexen Circle? She herself is a witch, or specifically the Witch of Purple Rose, so she is eligible in the Coven, right? Well, she is. In fact, if we judge her based on the knowledge she has and her power alone, she is far more eligible to enter the Coven. Despite being a weak character in gameplay, her lore portrays her as one of the strongest humans in the game so far from her brain alone. But there's one reason why she is not part of the Hexen Circle. She doesn't want to. That's it. That's her answer. There's a saying that Lisa was invited to the Hexen Circle but she declined to offer, and at first I also believed that to be the case. I even mentioned it in one of my videos. But after reading the lore again and again, I can't find anywhere that says that she was invited to the Hexen Circle. She did, however, openly deny that she is part of the Coven. I think people misread denied to declined, which I can see that being the case since they rhyme and have very similar words. But yes, as far as I know, Lisa denied being a part of the Hexen Circle, but whether she was invited to the Hexen Circle or not, that I don't know. It is possible since for a witch, she is a very strong one, and for someone who only needs 2 years to graduate, I can definitely see Alice invite her to the Hexen Circle. But as far as lore goes, no, she was never got invited, but she did openly deny of being a part of it. That being said, there are reasons why Lisa openly denies and has no interest in joining the Coven. The Hexen Circle is a group that actively does Irminsul exploration. Despite looking like a group of witches that only talk about fairy tales, every story they tell actually has deeper meaning, with Simulanka as the greatest example where Anders' daughter wrote that world as a mirror of Teyvat. The game didn't explicitly say that, but considering that Barbarloth created the skies of Simulanka as mirror of Teyvat, then it's a good assumption to say that Ant's daughter wrote it as a mirror world. In any case, the group consists of interesting individuals, and one thing they have in common is that they have the ability to perceive the true history of Teyvat. This is something that Nahida did as well, where she created a fail-safe attempt if Scaramouche deleted himself from the Irminsul, and that attempt ended up making Nahida and Paimon remember who Scaramouche is. The Hexen Circle was also involved in that quest as well, with Nicole reminding the traveler that the fate of humanity cannot be changed, while the gods have a slim chance of doing so. Considering that Sumeru's Archon quest intensifies the lore of Irminsul, it's no surprise if Lisa also has extensive knowledge of this as well. In fact, Lisa is from the Spantamat, which is a darshan that specializes in alchemy, elements, and ley lines, something that also relates heavily with the Hexen Circle. Just for the record, side note, the General Mahamatra is also from this Darshan, and it seems that this is one of those Darshans that have very deep knowledge when it comes to the truth of Tevat. But that being said, this is also the main reason why Lisa has no interest in joining the Hexen Circle. The fear of knowing too much. According to Lisa's 5th and vision story, it seems that Lisa got her vision when she was in the academia. Of course, it's possible that she got her vision in Mondstadt, but it's good to remember that Lisa returned to Mondstadt so she could have a peaceful life. Besides, she used her vision to gain knowledge anyway, and looking at Lisa's current job right now, it is implied that she rarely uses her vision. Before Lisa left, Cyrus wanted her to stay, but it's also that knowledge of knowing too much that led her to abandon that offer. In fact, her vision story is really weird. I mean, sure, all playable characters got their vision by weird and certain means. Well, not all of them, at least some of them are. And even if they do, there has to be at least a trigger. For example, Alhaitham obtained his vision by reading a book. That's it. And then there's side note that made me angry because he couldn't understand a topic in a book that he is reading. So he closed his eyes and ruminated, and the moment he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was a vision. You side note. But for real though, Lisa is arguably the weirdest and probably the least effort for someone to gain a vision. All she did was ask, "I suppose I shall need a vision then," and just like that, it appeared on her hand. She didn't even say that verbally, but just a thought in her head. So after Lisa obtained her vision, she used it to pursue the knowledge that she wanted. However, the more she used it, the more she grew afraid of the truth because for a scholar like her, she knew that gaining a vision is not free. The gods gave humans the key to change everything, but they did not explain the costs involved. Lisa, the more she used her vision, grew fearful of that truth. In response to this, whenever she finds someone interesting, she will tell them all kinds of discoveries that she found using her vision and hope that one day, someone will find the ultimate truth of the vision. We have gotten a long way. But yes, her vision is also a contributing factor why she wanted a peaceful and normal life. Ever since she returned to Mondstadt and became a librarian, she told 3 people these words. Before demanding too many miracles from the gods, first consider if you are willing to pay the price they ask. We still have no idea who these 3 people are, but considering they seem to be important people, it's possible that Farka is one of them. Ever since she returned, she became a librarian and had a peaceful life that we see today, teaching Razor and Durin with knowledge, and it's possible that Durin will be another person that she spoke these words to. I think you get the general gist now why Lisa denied being a part of the Hexen Circle. It's not really because of her vision, but the fear of knowing too much. Even though she said that the tea parties that the Coven hold is not interesting enough to her, it's more than not that she knew that the Hexen Circle are witches that often explore the truth of Tevat. It's not helping that Alice is the most involved member of the Hexen Circle with the Knights of Avonius, so it's not surprising if Lisa knows everything that needs to be known about this organization. However, despite all of that, this doesn't mean that Lisa is not involved in any of their activities, at least in a way. The Imaginarium Theater is also the restricted zone of the Knights of Avonius library. Only selected people can enter this zone, and it is made by the Hexen Circle, more specifically made by them for one of their members, Andersdotter. When you think about it, you might think that the restricted zone of the library would be filled with books that explain the truth of Tevat, and they kinda are. Lisa is responsible for taking care of the restricted zone, or in other words, the Imaginarium Theater. She already has this duty prior to the Traveler's Invitation, so her role and her affiliation with the Hexen Circle is that she has to take care of the theater, likely because of the fairy tales that contain a lot of truth of Tevat. It's quite funny when you think about it, because The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies are implied to be one of the books that the Hexen Circle wrote because it has strong hints of Kyria and the Heavenly Principles, but the first chapter is not part of the restricted zone. The rest of the chapters might be in there, it's just that we have no access to it yet. Finally, this is quite a popular theory, but Lisa is potentially a descendant of one of the Hexen Circle members, that being Andersdotter. The theory got stronger the moment Andersdotter's full name was mentioned in the Simulanka event as Anya M. Andersdotter. Andersdotter's code name was supposed to be A, but because Alice whined about it, she instead used M as her code name. But even in the event, we still have no idea what M stands for. Lisa's full name is Lisa Mincy, so it's very possible that Andersdotter's full name is Anya Mincy Andersdotter. The two share rose symbolism as well, where some of Andersdotter's book have roses, and so is Lisa, whose name is literally the Witch of Purple Rose. So far, we have no idea what that meant, but other than that, Lisa is also a librarian, so for her being Andersdotter's descendant makes sense. Not only that, in Durin's trailer, we see her appear there and tell Durin to make a wish for his letter to be sent to Andersdotter. At the end, we saw the letter got dissolved in the mailbox, so it's very safe to assume that the letter got sent. This could imply that Lisa probably has something to do with it or knows that it will get sent anyway. One of you mentioned that when she appeared, Mage's Tea Party OST suddenly plays in a more melancholic tone. It's a bit hard to notice it at first, but the more you listen to it, the more it resembles the OST.
Ever heard of the Hexencircle? As the spooky name suggests, it's a secret society. Once upon a time, it even challenged the Animal Archon himself. But he replied, "Let us make music, not war, and resolve our conflicts through song."
But my mom is...
In Mondstadt, we believe our loved ones are never lost to us. They're still out there, just beyond the stars.
So, this suggests that even though Lisa denies being a part of the Hexencircle, she is at least involved and connected to them. That's what we knew about Lisa. Even though she denied being a part of the Hexencircle, she is at least involved in some of their projects. For example, she takes care of the Imaginary Theater or the restricted zone of the Knights of Avonia's library, and there's a likely chance that she and Andersdotter are connected. But as far as the details of her connection goes with the Hexencircle, that's about it. The main reason why she doesn't want to be involved is because of the fear of knowing too much, which honestly, I can understand why she feels that way. Because of her denial, it's the biggest reason why she is not a part of the Hexerei buffs. And even though it's a hard pill to swallow, it is what it is. However, there's a chance that they were planning something bigger for her. Lore-wise, she might get another resonance buff for another faction, or maybe they're going to put her in the Hexerei buff sometime in the future. Another possibility is altar, which I am not too fond of the idea of altars existing in Genshin. Here's the thing, even though it is a thing in other MiHoYo's games, Genshin is the only game that should not have altars in it because the criteria of a character becoming playable in Genshin is very specific. It's so detailed in fact that becoming playable actually has lore. The wishing system is a canon thing in Genshin because this is the same thing with Skirk, where getting them means your fate is now intertwined with that character. Hence why the gacha tickets in this game are called the intertwined fates. Not only that, visions are also the core lore of this game because once you obtain a vision, you sell your fate to Teyvat and you have to pay the price of becoming the Heavenly Principles' fuel. This is mentioned in Yuvulet's vision story, and I also made a video about this recently, so you can watch that if you're interested. In any case, if altars exist in this game, then they have to make new lore on why that's the case. I also don't like the idea of altars in Genshin to begin with, so for me, the idea of Lisa having an altar is very slim. Unless they really need money, I don't know. However, just for fun, let's do something here. What if Lisa got buffed with the Hexerei buff? I think a lot of you also come here for this specifically, so let me give you my idea on Lisa's new kit based on her lore. But before we continue, I assume that you made it this far means you enjoy my videos and I appreciate you for that. So please, if you can leave a like and subscribe to this channel, you'll be helping this channel a lot. With that said, let's continue. So Lisa is strongly associated with Mondstadt and Sumeru because she is a Mondstadt citizen and she is an academician graduate. So of course, her newly established powers should also reflect on that. I personally don't think for her being related to swirls should be a thing, but I think she should be related to Dendro teams. This is perfect for Lisa anyway because her Ascension passive is Elemental Mastery, further enhancing her Dendro reaction damage. You might not know this, but when Sumeru was out, Lisa's usage went up quite nicely because she is one of the characters in the game that gained significant improvement after Dendron was out. She's usually played as an Aggravate main DPS, and I think it matches really well with her. So for that, I want her to be a main DPS and sub DPS hybrid for an Aggravate gameplay. From the way I play her, I personally enjoy using her as a hybrid, but it seems the way she is meant to be played is more so as a main DPS. It's mostly because of her elemental skill, where it demands her to stack the conductive status to enemies up to 3 times, meaning you have to spam the skill 3 times before you can use the hold version of the skill. However, her Ascension 1 passive allows her to easily do that with her charge attack, which means they demand you to use her more on field over being an off-fielder. That is nice and all, but here's the issue. Lisa has the standard ICD, except her elemental skill on hold version. Standard ICD means the character can only trigger reaction damage after 2.5 seconds or after 3 hits. Some characters have shared ICD, some of them don't, and for Lisa's case, all of them are separate from her normal attack, charge attack, elemental skill, and elemental burst. But even so, even though Aggravate is one of her best teams, it's also not really that good on her because her electro application is quite mediocre. It is doable, don't get me wrong, but you won't achieve fast electro application like Fischl, Clorant, and Kating. Besides, the way Quicken works is by adding flat damage after the reaction trigger, not multiplied damage like Melt and Vaporize. This is the reason why Fischl, Alhaitham, Tinari, Clorant, Sethos, and Kating work really well with this kind of setup because they trigger a lot of hits that allows them to spam the reaction. Oh yeah, Sino is also one of them, but I have to say, even though I own him at C2, he is still kind of mediocre. But in Lisa's case, she has lower application, not helping with her elemental burst that costs really high at whopping 80 energies, meaning you have to either build her with high ER or have another electro character in the party, which usually is Fischl in this case. But once you have Fischl, Lisa is just a dead weight in the team. Her elemental burst doesn't really deal a lot of damage anyway, and for perspective, the multiplier is 3 times lower than Fischl's elemental skill. She does have her Ascension 4 to make you justify using it, but even then, it doesn't really do a lot to begin with, and elemental resistance shred is just more valuable. However, believe it or not, her constellations are actually good. It doesn't really fully solve her problems, but for what she is, I'd say is actually decent enough. Her Constellation 1 solves her energy issues by a small margin, her Constellation 2 makes it easier to cast her elemental skill on hold, her Constellation 4 adds more DPS to her elemental burst, which is not much to begin with, and her Constellation 6 allows her to immediately maximize her conductive stacks, so you don't have to spam her elemental skill once she enters the field. With the way they buff 4-star characters, they add their Resonance buff and their Constellation 6. In special occasions like Razor, they actually add more to his Hexerei buff by making his Wolf Within deal more damage regardless whether you have the Hexerei Resonance active or not. You still have to unlock the passive first, but once you obtain it, this passive remains active even if there's less than 2 Hexerei characters in the party. Now I want to do the same thing with Lisa here, but I also want to do a bit of an overhaul with her. So here's what I would do. Keep everything as is, but first of all, change her elemental skill and elemental burst to elemental mastery. It doesn't have to be fully EM, but they can make the skill double scaling like Alhaitham and Sethos' skill. Because it is meant to be a nuke damage, then her elemental skill's elemental mastery scaling damage should also increase based on the number of conductive stacks that the enemy has. Secondly, decrease the cooldown of the elemental skill. For the costly elemental burst, it's hard to keep up with her energy needs. Third, instead of charge attack, make her Ascension 1 triggered by using certain amounts of normal attack instead. I know that Lisa's charge attack has no ICD, but the stamina is vital for your whole team anyway, especially if you need to iframe. Catalyst users have a very expensive stamina cost to the charge attack, and allowing her to apply conductive stacks on enemies using normal attack will allow her to deal aggravate damage to enemies in the meantime. Her Ascension 4 should decrease the enemy's electro resistance instead of defense. While defense is a universal debuff, buff, her 15% defense rate is not that meaningful in most content anyway. Finally, her Constellation 6 should increase the number of conductive stacks that the enemy can get, up to 5 points. Keep the rest of the base kit as is, but instead of applying 3 stacks, increase the application to maximum. Now there's a reason why, and it's related to her Hexerei buff. The pre-existing 4-star Hexerei buffs are usually connected to their Constellation 6, so I want to do the same with her as well. So here's what I would do. After completing Witch's homework, Lisa will become a Hexerei character. When the party includes at least 2 Hexerei characters, you will gain the Hexerei Secret Rite effect, which enhances Hexerei characters. Additionally, Lisa's normal attack is enhanced. Normal attack damage dealt is increased by X% of Lisa's elemental mastery. Hexerei Secret Rite: each conductive stacks consume increases Lisa's aggravate damage by X% for X seconds. Additionally, Lisa's elemental skill counts as aggravate damage. The way I designed her is to make her as lore accurate as possible. Of course, I am aware that Lisa is a 4-star, let alone a beginner character. However, I do believe that characters like this should be given more love anyway, let alone these 3 characters have the rarest constellations ever. Just for the record, I've been playing this game since day 1 and I don't have Amber, Kaya, and Lisa's constellation at maximum. Besides, this is just a what if anyway, and I know this will not happen regardless. But of course, I love making these what if buffs, and if you like this type of videos, I might make more in the future. With that said, what do you think of Lisa? Do you think she should get a Hexerei buff or not? And what is your Hexerei buff for her? Let me know in the comments. Jana!